Hello, so today what we are going to do is a tutorial on how to make our In the Hoop Owlette play mask. This was designed by us, so Corazon Boutique, and basically this is a play mask for a child or whatever, and it has two layers of fleece, the front and the back. It's a clean finish. It's not one that has just a bunch of sewn items on the front and the ones that leave the back all tangly mess and everything else. And also the elastic is done in the hoop as well. So you're not having to take this over to your sewing machine later. You can tell it's a nice finish on the front there. You don't even see the seam on the back for where the elastic is. And so this is what it's going to end up. So if you would like to go ahead and learn how to use our design, you can find it in our Etsy store to make this Owlette in the hoop play mask all in one hooping with the elastic. Then go ahead and stick around and we'll get at it. Hello. So this is a video on how to make our In the Hoop Owlette child's play mask. And all you need for that is a piece of elastic, approximately 12 inches in length. And I have found that the 1/4 inch elastic, 3/8 inch elastic, 1/2 inch elastic, anything works really for this mask. So it's really versatile. I've done it with the white elastic, the black elastic. Even if you have fold over elastic, any kind of elastic really works, which is a lot of fun. You're going to need 2 pieces of felt. For the Owlette mask, I do use the red, and it works out wonderfully. It's really cute. And the sizes are about 6 by 8, give or take, but you just want to make sure that the size that you have ends up covering the placement stitch that we're going to do. And then you're going to need a 5 by 7 sized hoop, and I do use just 1 sheet of tearaway on my hoop, and the tearaway that I use I can go ahead and link in the description below, so you have that information on that. And I can go ahead and see if I can find the felt that I have, but I think I just bought it in store actually at Hobby Lobby or Walmart, so I can take a look and see and try and link that below. Also same with the elastic. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take this hoop over to my embroidery machine, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch out the placement stitch on this, and then I'll be right back here to show you what we do next. Okay, so I took this over to the embroidery machine and I ran the first stitch, which is the placement stitch. And now what I'm going to do is take one of my sheets of this red felt, and for purposes here I actually am using a bit of a darker red than the actual color of the felt, just so that it will show up. Anyways, I'm going to take this piece of felt and I'm going to go ahead and place it over the entire placement stitch, just making sure everything's covered. This particular piece of felt's actually a bit larger than it needs to be. Like I said before, as far as the sizing goes, you just need to really work with one that just covers it, so closer to a 6 by 8 would be just fine. So now what I'm going to do is take this back over to the machine, and it's going to go ahead and sew the main design on the main part of the face here. This part does take a little bit to do and is totally optional. If you don't want to do this part, you can go ahead and skip this particular step on your machine and just go to the next part. But I do feel like this gives the mask the detail it needs just to be really pretty, really fun. And because the way that this mask is finished and formed with the double-sided felt on the back and the front, as well as the tearaway being on the inside, it is quite durable and will last a while. So taking that time to do that little extra step to make it just really pretty and fun, to me is totally worth it. So I do end up doing that every time, but again, it is optional. So I'm going to take this back over to my machine. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out, and I will bring it back and show you what we've got. Okay, so I took this over to the embroidery machine, and I had it stitch out this front that I told you about. How gorgeous does that look? It is so, so pretty. This is going to be such a fun mask. What I've done now is I've adjusted the pattern to allow for different thread changes in case you wanted to change the color of thread as you go through and do the different pieces. The next step is going to be sort of that little hump right here, and it's also going to do a motif centered design through there, and doesn't take quite as long, but again, it's going to be just this little bump right here, and it's really super cute. So even if you choose not to do this entire mask and this motif here, doing this little section, this next section right here is really cute. I did do the color change of the thread so that you can opt to do this in a different color. I'm going to do it the same color because I do like that sort of monochromatic, look to it. So it ends up being really pretty as well. All right, so I'm going to take this back over to my embroidery machine and stitch that part out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and we went ahead and took this over to the machine, and it did this little bump here, this little motif to give it some more pizzazz to it. As you can see, I pull that up a little bit closer. It's more of a wave. It's really pretty, kind of bird-like. One thing too I wanted to point out was when I created this design, I made sure that the eyes were holes in this particular piece, because if you were to sew this entire face and then sew the eyes and then cut it out, you're going to have these little strands that you've snipped through, and a lot of this is going to fray and the thread's going to pull out. So by creating it this way, it would be a really nice and long-lasting design feature. So the next step for this project is to stitch out the eyebrows. Again, I did another color change, thread change, just to allow you to opt for different thread colors for that if you wanted. I went and talked to my daughter, and she wanted this color. So this will be the color of the eyebrows for this particular one here. And I will go ahead and we'll get that stitched out, take this back over to the machine, bring it back, and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I took this over to my machine. I got the eyebrows stitched on in the color that she selected. And now I'm going to take it back, and it's going to outline just a couple of little lines just right along here on both sides, just to give it a nice little sort of accent, pretty it up just a little bit. And I did swap the thread back out to this deeper red color. So take it back to the machine, stitch that out, and bring it back. Okay, so I have this back now, and as you can see, there's just this really pretty detail here now, right on these edges, and it stands out actually a lot more if you choose not to use this main face mask motif, but either way, as you can tell, it just gives it that little bit of extra something that's really pretty. So the next step that is part of this process is we're going to go ahead and take it back again to the machine. I'm going to leave it the same color, but right in here we're going to see a line stitch on this side, a straight line, and then again over here on this side. And what that is going to be is the placement stitch for our elastic. So I'm going to go stitch out those placement stitches for the elastic, bring it back, and then we're going to talk about how we attach the elastic to the project. Okay, so that went ahead, I took it over to the machine, and it stitched out the placement stitches for the elastic, and you can see one here and you can see one there. The next step is the elastic is going to be attached to this bottom side, and then afterward the next step is that it will attach to this other side, and I do it in 2 steps for a reason. So this bottom one here is the one we're going to focus on. So we can see this red line here. I'm going to flip the hoop over, and you can see right in that same spot it actually is the same line. It's white on this side, the color of my bobbin is white. So what I like to do is take actually a piece of tape here. It's just Scotch tape. And I like to make sure that my elastic is over that line again right there on the back. just tape it in place just like that. And then sometimes, just to kind of help keep it out of the way for this placement, I'll go ahead and just tape it here too. And as we go back to the machine, I'm going to place the hoop back on the machine. This is taped out of the way. And what it's going to do is it's going to tack this down again right here. And then I will meet you back here. Okay, so I've taken my hoop and I stitched this down. You can see it's stitched just again right on top of that line that was there before. And now you can see, I still have a little bit of tape on there, but the elastic is now in place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of elastic, and we want to make sure that it's straight and that it doesn't get turned somehow. But what we want to do is take this piece and again place it down where that other piece is, that other placement stitch, and we want to tape this down as well. And make sure that when you're taping it down that you are going over that initial placement line so that it catches the elastic. And this is going to be the top that it stitches down this time, so I'm going to make sure that everything is just kind of out of the way, and I do end up taping it down in just a couple of different places so when it stitches here it doesn't accidentally catch the elastic over there. So I will take this and just kind of tape it right out of the way. Okay, so now I'm going to take this back to my machine. I'm going to place it in, and it's going to tack down my elastic right there, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I took this back to the machine and I have that elastic in place now. You can see there, I did take the tape off, but now it's officially in place. It was just tacked down right there. So what we're going to do next is we are going to add the second layer of the fleece to our project. And I do use just a basting spray on my fleece just to kind of make it stay. Put that in there. And I want to make sure that, of course, my elastic stays nice and straight. On both sides, make sure that I'm covering up all of my stitches. I'll probably move this over just a little bit, make sure everything's nice and covered, just like that, and it's basted down. Next step that I'm going to do is to make sure that this elastic stays out of the way. And so to do that, I will flip my project back over, and this is where my hoop goes in. So I'm going to take my elastic and I'm going to flip it over the hoop, just like that. Okay, so it's just going to be, doesn't matter if it's really twisted at this point because it's not going to get down anyways, or stitched down. So you want to make sure it's just out of the way of your stitches. And if you have to tape it down to keep it out of the way, go ahead and do that. So like this right here would work fine, but I'll just tape it just to kind of really make sure. Okay, so the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back to my machine and I'm going to stitch out the center of the eyes. And just to give you another view of what the back looks like, I've got my elastic. Doesn't really matter, that's a little twisted, it's fine. Covered by that. And I will be back. Okay, so I took this over to the machine, and you can see where it finished those eye holes with the triple bean stitch. Made it look really nice, so it'd be nice and sturdy. And on the back, so I am using a white bobbin for this project, and you can kind of see the white on the bottom here. So just keep in mind that the color that you do use for your bobbin will show on the back of the mask. Obviously, if it's for a child, they're really not going to care. But if you care, maybe I would suggest changing your bobbin to a red thread color if you cared about kind of what the back looked like. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to take it back to the machine, and we're going to finish this off with the border stitch that I've set up for it. It's going to go all the way around the entire outside of the mask. And then after that, I'm going to bring it back and we'll talk about what we do next. Okay, so I have this back from the embroidery machine. The entire stitch out is now complete. And you can take this elastic and push it on the back. But take a look at how pretty that detail is around there in that last stitch. It's like these little teeny tiny feathers kind of that go just all the way around. It just makes it really pretty. Finishes it up really nice. So the next step is we're gonna go ahead and take this out of our hoop. Our hoop out of the way here, and then we remove the stabilizer from our project. And you can just tear the stabilizer out. Okay, so go ahead and take the stabilizer off from all the way around. And then after you're done with that, and all stabilizer is gone, you're just going to take your scissors and you're going to very carefully just trim right up against the edge here. Be really careful not to cut into those stitches. Give yourself a little bit of room as you're cutting along these stitches here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We also want to go ahead and cut out the center of the eyes. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back, and I took the stabilizer, the tearaway stabilizer, off of the entire mask, and I also trimmed around all the edges so you can see pretty close here. See if I can get that to get my camera to focus. Trimmed pretty close. Everything looks really nice, really pretty. You can definitely see why I have this center motif done. I just think it gives it a really elegant, classic look. Anyone's gonna love playing in this mask. Very durable. Like I said before, it's two sides of the fleece here, so it's very durable, and the inside is still the tearaway, so it's nice and good. The elastic is tight in there. Remember how we got it in there on both sides here? So it's in there really well. Really easy to put on. Nice finished product. No strings on the back floating around anywhere. It'll be nice and smooth, easy to wear. And that is your finished Owlette mask.